I transported on its flat on the cart. So basically,
Oh, come
I know,
on,
but
noob.
it wasn't far, and it was 12 feet long, and it wasn't far. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, we're just going down the road, not very far. Well, I shouldn't say just down the road. It was like 10-minute drive, but I had it strapped to the cart. But even from the bouncing up and down, right? I
Mhm.
ended up putting stress cracks in it. So we went to go pick it when we rolled it across our front yard, which was like,
Mhm.
and we went to go tip it up. Anyways, it fucking fell into three pieces.
My guest today is Chuck Fournier of Creative Concrete Industries in Ontario, Canada. And you would not believe how many times I had to say that before I actually got a usable version of that. In this episode, we talk about design, some shop recommendations, and larger seamless pieces, as well as using cranes to deliver them. Chuck thought it was a really good idea to start the episode as far away from his router as possible, so we had some technical issues in the beginning. If you would like to skip those parts where we had a little bit of low volume on his end and a little bit of sound problems, skip to about minute 18 and you should skip past that stuff. As usual, check the chapters or show notes for timestamps if you're looking for something specific, and any resources we mentioned will be there as well with affiliate links if you'd like to support this channel. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoy the episode. So I've been starting each episode with everybody's story. Um, as far as like everybody in the forums, for whatever reason, likes to complain about how hard concrete sucks, this, that, and the other. So I'm always curious as to like, if everybody genuinely believes that, like why are you here? Like why? You know what I mean? So like, so why did you get started in concrete, or how did you even get to the industry? And then uh both how you started and then kind of where you're at now and like what your goals are for where you currently are.
Wow, that's a huge loaded question. Um, so yeah, let me get started. I guess I was a contractor for God since I was like 19 years old. Started my first company. I was doing general contracting in Toronto. Anyways, we did that for 5 years, and then my wife at the time got pregnant, decided to move back to Ottawa, where I'm originally from. Kind of fell into, I guess, a foreman position for years with another company. My brother started his company. He's been in concrete for God, it's been about 10 or 11 years now, I believe. So, anyways, I was kind of dabbling in my profession that I was in at the time, doing woodworking and forming and roofing and all that kind of stuff. And after about 5 years that he was up and running, my parents, actually my mom, she was like, I want to do like a concrete countertop along like her windowsill or something like that. So she had heard this. It was a Surecrete class I went to in Toronto, um, and she was just like, why don't you guys spend the weekend? It's like a 3 hour or 4 hour crash course in Toronto, and just go check it out. So, anyways, I walked in and we started looking around. We started kind of doing the class, or I wouldn't even call it a class. It was more of like a sales product thing. Like they just wanted to sell you some
Mm-hmm.
product, kind of give you a quick run through on how to use it. But anyways, I was like looking around at the countertops and the sinks, and I was blown away. I'm like, this stuff is fucking amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually, on the way home, I asked my brother, I'm like, hey, do you want to start up a fucking concrete countertop company? And he's like, well, I've already got my thing on the go. If you want to partner, and we'll do it on the side. But I'm the kind of guy like I just go like balls to the wall kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I gave 2 weeks notice at the job I was at. I quit my job, basically took any money that I had and started like um, basically just buying material. And we ended up getting my parents to buy the shop that I'm in now. They bought this property which had kind of had a mini putt that was run down at the time, but it had a big shop on it. So we ended up buying the shop, renovating the shop. My brother, we all moved into the shop together, and basically we I kind of jumped into it, not even knowing how to make a fucking countertop or
Mm-hmm.
make a sink or make anything. So then I went on to search some stuff, and obviously I came up with the concrete design school.
Mm-hmm.
So I signed up for my class at the concrete design school, and did went down, met Dusty and Brandon, and I had it's funny. At the time, an amazing experience. Looking back at it now, or even years ago, I definitely could pick apart that class on things that I did learn. I did learn a lot. Things
Hmm.
that I should have learned in that class and I didn't. Um, so anyways, I left there with like this huge, like I was like, this is awesome. Like now I know how to at least do this, or I knew how to do this. So I got back to my shop, and my dad's like, okay, well, like, let's make a countertop. And I was kind of like, uh, don't really know how, like, where to start. There was a lot of stuff that I felt was, for a guy that just quit his job and was looking to jump into it. I wasn't. I was given the direction on how to like make concrete look cool, fabric
Hmm.
form a sink, but I wasn't really shown like the real life, like, hey, this is how you form it, this is how you do it. And I guess a tragedy and an opportunity came up at the same time, which was, Dusty fell off a ladder, broke both his
Yeah.
legs, and me and Dusty had kind of bonded while I was there. So when I was there, as soon as I seen that, I kind of messaged Dusty right away. I said, "Listen, you need the help. I need the experience. How about I come and live with you for 6 months, and and basically I'll help work in your shop and make sure everything kind of stays going for you." So, then I ended up moving a week and a half later. I ended up moving to Nashville for 6 months. I probably could have
Jeez.
left after a month because I'm pretty knowledgeable. And once I seen kind of, the gist of it, I basically, but I don't know, I'm the kind of person that when I follow through something, like if I told him I was going to be there for 6 months, I gave him 6 months until he was up and walking and able to do it all on his own. And
Hmm.
that's what I did. So, I had a great experience out there. I did I guess, a lot of traveling. I think me and you met briefly at the last Phoenix Plan B class. So yeah, like I said, I was kind of just taking in concrete as much as I could at the time. So yeah,
With
just catch up a little bit. So
I do want to. Okay, so I want to put in one. This probably won't mean anything to you because you haven't seen all the episodes that I've recorded so far. But like all the previous episodes are going to sound very CCI slanted. Basically the competitor to Concrete Design School, and then the first person that I have on here that went to
yep.
uh, CD. Let's see, Concrete Design School. So CDS um, is like. See if I can if I can word this properly. We're both saying that the classes are good. I think that the thing that I have not made clear thus far is that I think it's a very lofty goal of what the classes want to accomplish, but it is virtually impossible to cover everything in such a short a period of time. So I do want to make it clear that even though that I went to CCI, there are things that we just weren't able to cover in the class there either. Um, I know it sounds like a kind of CYA interjection here, but I don't want it to come across as in like I'm disparaging of one class and pro another class. I want to see if you agree with the statement of it's best when you're getting started to just take a school, like just take a school. Um, and I'm curious as to whether you agree with that statement and if yes or no, why so?
Uh, yeah, I can say that I definitely agree with that statement. Um, you know what I mean? I'm not. Um, Geez, there's so many loaded questions here where I can just dive off into a million different ways. But I agree with you saying that yes, you should just pick a school and you have to go to it. Unfortunately, that school might not have given you what you wanted. And personally, I didn't get what I needed from the concrete design school. But not to say that I didn't get a lot of information, a lot of great information,
Hmm.
um, and and met some amazing people, and that I still talk to.
Yeah.
But for years, I talked to Brandon about starting up a forming class because, for me, that was the part that was missed. And he's like, well, this is an advanced technique course and stuff like that. And I'm like, so my debate with him was always like, well, maybe you should write that on, the school, or let me do my own class, which for years we debated back and forth. He finally let me do my class at Dusty's shop one time, which, do I think it went great personally? Yeah, I think everybody enjoyed the class. Could it went a little bit better? Possibly. Was I organized? Yeah, I had everything cut, whatever. I basically thought I went through the everything properly. His comment was I did I make too much? Um, I basically don't think I made too much. I think I made for too much for Dusty because he was the one that had to cast some of the stuff. But one of them was his own personal countertop that he wanted me to make that was like 11 feet long with a sink in it. So, you know what I mean? I only made a small table and then I made a little waterfall table. So to me, I'm like, no, I didn't make too much. But if there's other complaints that too much was made, that would have been through the other person having to cast it all. I was just trying to follow procedure on what they wanted and what I wanted to do. Um, so, and then after that, I went back and forth with Brandon. And I'm like, well, why don't you let me come in a day before? You guys do your pinnacle concrete classes, and everybody comes in for a 6th day or a 7th day, and we do. I'll show everybody how to form, a countertop, a table, templated, properly. I'll show them how to form up an upright casting. These were all things that were going to be taught throughout the week. So let's spend one extra day showing people, okay, like let's start at point A here, and we'll show you how to get to point Z, which would be sealing it. The install you're going to have to kind of figure out on your own. But for me, in a class from point A to Z would be how to template it and how to seal it. And that was always a great debate between me and him. He said that people don't want to travel that long, and I'm like, it's an extra day, and if they're going to learn something, they don't care to travel. So that's, so yeah, so that was always the thing for me is I thought the concrete design school had great, I'm going to say potential, because at one point he's going to probably hate this podcast and say, fuck that guy. I'm going to whatever, or he'll come back to debate something about this podcast saying like this or that. I'm not saying anything bad about the concrete design school. I just feel like there were certain things missed for me personally. And I know for a fact through other people that have come to my shop that took the concrete design school that were kind of clueless on how to do some stuff. And I offered them to come to my shop for free. And I said I'd walk them through it and help them out any way I could. And that's the way I've always been is, I'm here to help. I'm here to try to help everybody succeed. And yeah, so that's kind of that. So I'll leave it off with that, and you can ask more questions off of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I realized that it was a little bit of a loaded question. We kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent, but I'm glad to hear that you would recommend that people take a class and do that, because like you can kind of reinvent the wheel and you waste a lot of time doing that. But I think it's important for people to understand that the classes, regardless of which one you take, there are pros and cons. It is virtually impossible to cover everything in such a short period of time. And that's something that I wish was talked about maybe a little bit more, is that we're going to cover all these topics, but some in greater detail than others. And some of them we're going to barely get to. It's like what is said in the forums quite a bit is setting expectations. When there's a discrepancy between what somebody expects or thinks that they're going to get and what they actually get, that's kind of where you get those sources of frustration. So not to beat a dead horse, but I think that's where we'll leave it before we maybe piss off any more people within the first 5 minutes of the episode. But so that's kind of how you got.
It's all good. It's all good.
So that is how you got from basically point A to, say, kind of middle of the road. So where are you at now, and where do you kind of hope to go in the next year or so? Like, what are your goals for your company?
the last kind of, year's been kind of tough for me, going back and forth, debating whether or not I want to do concrete, or not. I'm still pretty young, but I am 44, so I'm kind of looking at what my end goal will be. Do I want to be lifting countertops at 50 years old? Probably not. I'm a pretty fit guy, but at the same time, shit's getting heavier. I like to build stuff that's probably unrealistic. So I don't like seams, so everything's heavy, and so I was trying to figure out where I was going to go. I am working for my brother, but I'm also trying to rebuild this company even bigger and better, and I'm gonna move on to doing lots of stuff. I've been talking to, the worst part is, when I was, with, I guess, a trainer with the concrete design school, we were talking about consulting, and I'd have to go through them. But now that all my bridges are burnt, I've been talking to a company out of Mexico that might want to bring me over and consult and work on some projects with them. I'm probably going to do some training in the future, and it's all going to be basic stuff. I'm not looking to take away from the concrete design school. I'm not looking to do anything like that. I want to teach the basics so that people like me who quit their jobs because they find kind of a new passion and they really want to get into it, I wanted to give them like a good head start on, where they can go. So, the future for me in the next year,
we don't need to start over. I mean, it's not, dude, it's a fucking podcast about concrete.
Yeah.
We're just winging it over here anyways. So
Okay.
what are your goals? We'll start there again.
Okay. So my goals now are, I was trying to say, we are looking at a second shop now where I will have my own space. My goals is to go more into furniture.
Nice.
I want to do, high-end sinks and, coffee tables, dining room tables, just console tables, anything like that. Stuff that's, like I said, stuff that's easy for me to be able to lift and, I can do myself, because I don't want to, I don't want to be doing this when I'm 50 years old. I mean, I can't, I can only struggle so much. And, I have my brothers help me and all that kind of stuff, and they're great to do it. But at the same time is, everything gets bigger, and I'm a yes man, so I don't tell people no. So that's the problem.
What could go wrong?
yeah. I've learned the hard way what can go wrong. So yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, at the very least, it's good that you have a little bit of maybe it's not completely defined, but at least you have a direction that you want to go. Like some people are just like, oh, I'm just making pieces from day to day to day. And then before you know it, like you get 5-10 years down the road and you're still like, so why are you making that? And be like, it's a good question. I don't know why I'm still doing this. But what was the impetus for that? So why did you decide that you wanted to change and go that direction? Because that's a somewhat uncommon direction for people to go.
Yeah, well, the whole thing is I always wanted to be doing sinks and furniture, and I kind of fell into it very quickly. I mean, not that I didn't want to do concrete countertops and all that kind of stuff. But sorry, there's just some background noise here a little bit.
Yeah,
anyways, so it's not that I didn't want to do the countertops and stuff, but I always kind of wanted to do the coffee tables, the sinks, the furniture, and all that kind of stuff. I just fell into the countertops, and then it got so busy and overwhelming that I could never get out of it. But I do have, I guess you could say, a partnership now with my brother. So it gives me a little bit of ease that I'm not financially bound to this company anymore. So I do, so this way here, I'm probably taking on more jobs now than ever, but some of them are what I want to do and not what I have to do. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So you mean before it was like, when I was just financially being supported off the countertops, I had to take everything that was coming in, make sure that all the bills were getting paid and stuff like that. Now I've got a secondary job with my brother. I'm still doing, all the countertops, but I'm starting to do more coffee tables, more dining room tables, a lot more sink jobs, and that's where I want to go in the direction. And the reason I'm able to do that is because I'm not so financially bound to just being, pushing out countertop after countertop after countertop.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
That does seem to be where a lot of people get caught, is that tension between I want to do this thing, but I have to pay the bills over here on this side. And sometimes, a lot of times, those things can be in complete conflict with one another. I think that's why a lot of people will recommend like keeping your day job and doing this other thing on the side and kind of building it up as like a side hustle, as opposed to a certain someone who shall not be named jumping in full speed ahead.
Yeah.
How are you going about transitioning between those two things? Are you doing the things that you want to do now with some of the similar designers and customers that you had before, or is this a new subset that you're kind of
No,
going after?
no, I'm still working with a lot of the same designers that I was before. I think even people, it's weird because I always say like Canada's different than the US, and obviously the US is different than Europe. And a lot of stuff that's done in Europe has been done for like 15, 20 years. Like they're way ahead of the game in concrete and, furniture design and all that kind of stuff. And then it trickles into the US. And, you look at guys like Dusty Baker, Brandon Gore, blah, blah, blah. They've been in this industry for about, 12, 15 years now. And that's kind of when it started to get big in the US. Not that it's not still growing and getting bigger, but in Canada, there's so many people that are like, I never knew about concrete countertops. I never knew about this. And it's, I kind of got into it at the perfect time when people start getting interested in it again, because obviously, concrete's come a long way in the last 12 years from the bag mix you can go buy at Lowe's that said, concrete countertop mix.
Yeah.
So, for me, that's where I'm getting it. I have a lot of designers. They'll send me like a table. Can you make this? I'm like, fuck yeah, I can. Like, I'll make anything you want. Like, just you tell me, I'll do it. So I'm working with a lot of same designers. People, I wouldn't say they're hesitant on the countertop pricing and stuff like that, but sometimes I'm at the I don't care price because I'm the one that has to lift it. I'm the one that has to make it and install it. So my price is my price now, and I stick to it. I don't really care who you are anymore. So that's the bottom line. So
has that always been the case for you for the pricing, or did that take a little bit of a mental journey, if you will?
I'd say mental journey. There was times where, I started off at like $85 a square foot, but I was basing all my, yeah, but I was basing all my prices off of what US was charging, right? Because that's where Dusty, 5 years ago, that's where he was charging, right? It was $85 a square foot. He charges a lot more than that now, but for me getting into it, I kept it at the, $85 a square foot, which was technically probably like $70 American. So, and I'm buying all my materials out of the US. So was I making money? Yeah, I was making money, probably not as much as I should have been. My numbers have come up considerably since then, because I'm at the point where it's like, you know what, I feel like I'm good at what I do. You might have a lot of happy customers. I've got one really upset customer that I'm dealing with, getting sued for it. But at the same time, it's like, you know what, I gave them a product. I feel the contractor failed their part of the job, and I offered to do one part for free. But other than that, I've had great success with anything I've ever done. And I don't have. Do I get callbacks? I'm probably too much of a customer service oriented, so I probably do too much for my customers sometimes. But that's who I am. You know what I mean? That's the way I've always been. So
yeah,
it's a downfall though.
Yeah. Well, do you know who Simon Tipple is? You seen
Yep.
him in the forest?
Yeah.
Okay, so like I just talked to him recently, and he's got a similar kind of mindset that you do. Is like if somebody calls him and say, "Hey, can you do this?" He's like a yes sir. Like I'm like, dude, you're working like 100 hours a day. Like you can only keep that up for so long. But he's pretty good about keeping, like, he's got a very specific goal, but like there are some downsides to having that yes sir mentality. Like you can get what do they call it? Scope creep? Is that what it's called? Where it's just like you signed up for do one thing, and then that becomes, well, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And before you know it, you're like, oh, I'm doing all this free shit, man. What the hell's going on here?
I get that all the time. Like some of my my installs, right? They're just, absolutely ridiculous. And, people in the past would be like, why? Like, did you even charge for that? I'm like, nah, we had the machinery anyway. So like,
Mm-hmm.
you mean one of my last installs, probably about 3 installs ago, it had to go up 3 stories, up a back fire escape. And I told the guy, I'm like, don't worry, you're just down the road. Like we'll throw it in. And everybody's looking at me like, how you gonna do that? I'm like, just hold my beer. Like, watch this.
Mm-hmm.
So, luckily enough, my brother owns a lot of machinery. We have like telehandlers and all that kind of stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
I go there, I remove the railings on basically the fire escape, and we're booming this up. I'm riding the boom on the way up as we're like, putting it up we can get it as close to the second story. So we only had one set of stairs to go up. And like my brother and my dad looks at me and they're just like, did you even charge enough for this? And so I'm like, no, I only charge like $500. Like, and, but I've got 4 or 5 guys there, plus machinery. So 2 trailers, machinery, like telehandlers, my
Mm-hmm.
trailer, my truck and whatever. But, I get free labor. You know what I mean? I use my family for everything. And that's why, that's been the one saving grace is I've never had to hire people because I don't want to hire anybody. Nobody's passionate about this job. That's unfortunate. You hire somebody and
Mm-hmm.
they look at it as a job and it's not a passion to them, which is unfortunate. So,
Yeah, see, I don't know. I think the part that I have the hardest time with that is I can't envision a situation where I would ever be as passionate about somebody's thing as I would about my own.
yes,
Um, and it comes up a lot. Like guys that do hire people, they're like, oh, you just you can't find any decent help, and I'm like, I've now full disclosure, I've never tried to hire anybody, so take this for what it's worth. But
yeah,
just coming from a logical standpoint, I just can't see, like, you can't expect the same things from them. Like, for one, you're paying them a hell of a lot less than you're paying yourself, so there's that. And two, it's just like they just want a job.
yeah. Well,
Um,
I've never hired anybody outside of either friends or I even had, I had Yadi come from India to come stay with me for 3 months. And, but I hired a buddy once because I was kind of stuck and I said, do you want to come work for me? And he's like, yeah, he's like, I want this much an hour, which at the time I was like, it's too much money, but I need the help, just because he didn't know anything. So I was just like,
mhm.
okay, well, like whatever, I'll pay it. So we were doing a huge bar job and it was a Friday and we were polishing 11 tables. I never told him this, and it's not like he's gonna ever watch the podcast anyways. But he he ended up working, and I'm like watching him outside, and he's polishing these tables, and I'm like, I went out and I'm like, listen, I'm like, there's no rush. Like, if you don't finish it today, don't worry about it. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, just take your time. You mean I get paid to make good products? Like, there's no rush. So I'm watching him out there, and he's polishing, and I'm like, you know what? I'm like, just don't worry about it. Like, just finish up and go home. But because you can just tell he was just rushing to get through it.
Mhm.
So he ended up going home and I go outside and look and he had polished everything right down past like because I was using the Dusty technique. So you're only taking off the cream. He ended up polishing it past everything.
Oh
Um,
no.
so I ended up having to throw out 11 tables and remake them. And I was supposed to have them installed on the Monday. So I had to call the bar owner. I'm like, listen, I'm like, I wrecked the tables. And they're like, well, like, how bad are they? I'm like, I'm not putting them in the bar. Like, I'm not happy with them. So I refuse to do it. So I ended up having to remake them all that weekend on my own, finishing them out on the Monday and like probably sealing them on Tuesday. And so I ended up installing like on a Wednesday, but I had to like remake 11 tables. They weren't well, they're 4 by 2, and there was 11 of them, so that's enough.
Mhm.
But I had to throw out. Well, I didn't throw out all the other ones. I put them in the back, and people took them like over the years. But yeah, I was just, and that's what I mean. Like it to me, like we get paid to take our time and do things right, and to like that's why I'm saying like people don't care as much. Like I don't care
Mhm.
if it takes you a half a day or a full day, as long as it's done right. Like the money's there, in the product. So don't just like let's turn out a good product, and that's about it. So that's what was important to me.
Yeah. Well, it can be a little bit hard to convey that to somebody too. I guess depending on what kind of background they have or what industry they've come from. Um, I do want to I want to I want to circle back to the transitioning
Yes.
The what does that conversation look like? Have you contacted any designers and be like, "Hey, I know we've made some countertops, but I'm looking to get into this other thing." Have you had any conversations like that? Because I know no, damn it, because I know that
No,
there are some people that in the forums that I've spoken with that they're doing the countertops and they're locked into it and they're wanting to do that transition over to kind of what you're doing. I'm trying to find somebody that has like that actual reach out thing. So like, this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm getting to here. Cause like, that's tough. That's really, really
yeah,
tough. Cause some people,
yeah,
they're either
no,
too scared or they haven't articulated what it is that they want to transition to.
yeah, no. For me, I've always been building small pieces of furniture here and there and everywhere. So people see that kind of on my, on my Instagram, because that's the only place I actually post, and I might promote a piece here and there.
Hmm.
A lot of the designers will just basically reach out to me on Instagram saying like, hey, can you make this? And I'm like, yep. But they always send me a CB2 picture. It's always Crate and Barrel. They're like, oh, so the second I even get those, I always tell them, like, it's cheaper to buy it from Crate and Barrel.
Yep.
Like I don't even start pricing them. And then people are like, no, like, so I think I've made one piece, and it's actually a piece that I'm making right now. So I'm doing an entire kitchen for this guy, and I'm doing like these massive backsplashes. Everything's over the top with him. So he's like, hey, can you make me this table? And I'm like, just order from there.
Hmm.
And he's like, can you match the price, like $2,700? I'm like, no. You know what I mean? Like, I'll be way more than that.
Hmm.
So he's like, I said, but I said, with me, I said, you buy once, you cry once. So basically, mine will last, 10, 20, 30, 40, it's concrete, unless you throw it down a fucking cliff,
Hmm.
it's going to last forever. I've seen a lot of CB2 pieces. They start to delaminate because they're like a thin layer of concrete, then they're like fiberglass backed. And I've seen them delaminate and they start chipping after, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. Because I had people ask me if I could fix it all the time. I'm like, no. I'm like, I don't fucking fix junk. So he wanted a bigger table anyways. It was a 70-inch diameter table. We did the base and all that kind of stuff, but I charged him for what it was worth. I'll display that table here soon. We're going to actually it'll be the first time I'm actually going to take proper pictures of a table. Usually, like, I'm just in my shop and I'm just like,
Yep.
yeah, whatever the best I can do with my iPhone, which, what?
Hmm.
Hey, listen, iPhones have come a long way. They still take pretty good
Oh, yeah.
pictures. But we're going to do, a backdrop and set it up properly and get the lighting properly and take some good pictures of it. Cause that does, that does help. And I have to give that one to Gore. He always said, you got to take, good pictures of your product. Yeah. Just when I think this is going to be like a huge Gore bashing thing, it's just like, like, did he teach me a lot? 100%. You know what I mean? So whatever, you know what I mean? On a business level, yeah, he's great. Personal level, whatever. We went our own separate ways. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's typically the if you had to melt it down to a very distilled, I don't know if you can melt things down and distill things. That probably doesn't make any sense. If you were to distill it down to the most basic components, is that's typically the thing. Is like he has a. I love his philosophy on putting forth the effort to get good design. But
Mm-hmm.
then the people complain about the personal thing. There's We'll just leave it at that. There's nothing that people can really do with that information. I'm happy that he is doing a podcast to help people, whether people like it or not. That's up to them to decide. But it's something, right? I mean, like, there's only 2 podcasts that we have for our industry, so it's something is better than nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, absolutely.
So with the pieces that you're doing now, do you design some of those pieces yourself? Like, do you enjoy that part of it, or do you just like making custom pieces? Because those are 2 very different things, right?
I definitely like designing pieces. I usually, anything I get from obviously a customer or a designer is, their inspiration on what they want. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'll either, I add my flair into it. I'm not saying I have a huge flair. I would say that, am I a designer? I don't know, not as good as some people, but I can I can do stuff. Sorry, just background stuff going on here. Um, am I a designer? I don't know. I've always, people are always like, man, you're such an artist. I've never even looked at myself as an artist before. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
just a contractor that decided to get into this. Can I design pieces? Absolutely. Can I build cool shit? Yeah. Usually I follow guidelines that are given to me, and that's how I work it in. If I can see a better design element, I always tell a customer, I'm like, you know what, just trust me on this one. And like, some of the hidden drains I've done for sinks now and stuff like that, because I don't really like seeing a drain. So I've thought of different creative ways to hide them, and doing just different stuff. So which is always come uh it come in better than what they expected. So
Mm-hmm. So it's more of a take the information that you're given and then you kind of run with it, as opposed to sitting down with like a sketch pad and then trying to sell that thing.
So I will be doing that if the new shop is, let's say, a go,
Mm-hmm.
which we're definitely we're pushing for it to be a go. Um, the new showroom fucking has to go off, eh? The new showroom will be geared more like right now. The showroom that I'm in now, it's geared towards my brother and in all his product. He sells masonry stuff, so it's all stone and bricks, and so the new showroom will be kind of like a mecca of my stuff. We're gonna do some crazy stuff, stuff that I already have in my head, that I have to put down on paper. So I think once I get into my own shop and I have my own time and space, you're gonna see a lot of design things that I'm gonna do, and even some stuff that's borrowed from other places that honestly, it's funny, like Cody Carpenter. I love watching some of his stuff, and sometimes I might see a
Mm-hmm.
piece that I want to create at one point. So, Cody's been the most humble person I've probably met in this industry, because as much as I wasn't supposed to be friends with Cody Carpenter because he was Plan B, you know what I mean? Cody's always been nice to me. I've always been able to reach out to him. We didn't really have a lot of time, to talk when I went to the Plan B course because he was sick. But anytime I've ever reached out to him, he's been very humble. I'm like, hey man, like I really like this design you did. Like, would you be okay if I built that down the road? And he's always been, yeah, man, like you do you. If you want to build that, that's cool with me. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's a couple of guys that I like things that they built, 2-3 years ago, and it's stuff that I'm probably going to incorporate in maybe some of my future design. Um, so yeah, so like, and I'm not stealing pieces because I have no problem saying, hey, saw this from this guy and want to replicate it or something like that. Just because there's a lot of beautiful pieces out there. I'll make my own stuff, but like I said, there's some pieces that really intrigued me, and I want to build them myself, that I've seen other people, because they're very complex, and that's the stuff I like. I like building stuff that are very unique and complex.
Mm-hmm.
So
So you haven't really started the whole iterative process yet, right? So like getting into a practice of sitting down and sketching things and
I should.
yeah. Uh it's tough to get started. Well, it can be tough to get started. Because there's so many different ways to do it. Are you more of a visual person, or do you like to um here, let me rephrase that. Do you like putting things down in physical space? So paper, pen, or are you more of a digital guy, like you like doing it on the computer, or do you just do it in your head?
I it all like, I cannot. I've downloaded all the programs on the computers to try to get into the digital world. I cannot do it though. Like I get into it, and there's so many guys that I follow, that I watch them build these things on the computer so fast. And I've had guys, when I was at the concrete design school, they'd come in, these students, and they'd start whipping, like, yeah, like let's
Hmm.
make this, and they have it all up on their screen, and I'm like, fuck man, I wish but I can do that just as fast with a pen and paper. I'm old school.
Hmm.
I came from, I guess, a draftsman background. My dad's a draftsman. So we were taught how to draw, and as draftsmen and architects, stuff like that. So for me, anytime, like even now, my dad, if we're building something or whatever. He draws it on onion paper, and he draws it to the T. So I think that's kind of like the way I do things. 90% of it's in my head first, and right before I build it, I'll scratch it down on paper and build it. It's the shittiest. Like I make fun of my drawings all the time. Like if you ever watch my Instagram, I'm always making fun of like my measurements. I'm like, these shitty measurements, chicken scratch like a doctor. And but then I'm able to like put it all together and make something beautiful out of it. I've never worried about the drawing part of it because I know the outcome of whatever I'm doing is going to be what I envisioned. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Do you, when you're going through and doing something like that, do you have a process that you like to do? So like, is there always a drawing in between the head and the making of the thing, or like how do you keep the cut list in your keep track of that?
So yeah, so there would be there always is some kind of drawing, no matter how childish it looks. I mean, there's drawing, there's sizes put to it, just so I can, because I always have to refer back to something, like you said, for a cut list, right? Whether or not I can, put it all together properly. So yeah, there always is a drawing before, even like I said, no matter how shitty the drawing is, there is one, and there's measurements to it. If I change things on the fly as I'm building it, because I see a better design element as I'm building it, yeah, like then I'll switch up something on the fly. But other than that, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much 90% memory, and then it goes into 10% paper, and then it just go from there. So,
do you have any recommendations for people as far as like maybe practices that you've found that either work really well or don't work really well as you go through? Because like I love the saying, "The dullest pencil is better than the sharpest mind." Like that is by far one of my favorite quotes ever. So I like writing everything down. Is there anything that's like that like you've found that helps a whole lot, maybe exponentially more than other things?
Get OCD. That's what you want to become. OCD. Before any of this started, I didn't really care about a lot of things, and I'm very repetitive, right, on how I do everything now. And I've become extremely OCD with how I do. Like, it's kind of like a regiment. You know what I mean? I just go from here to here to here to here. And it's funny because I was never like that. Like until about the last 5 years, and it just, you know what I mean? I go through certain steps and I never change those steps because it's just, so I don't know. It's different for everybody. Everybody learns differently. I mean, it was funny because, Brandon always comments when the first time I took his class was like, he called me Canadian psycho because I was just the guy that didn't say anything. I just sat there and I just like, because I'm a visual guy, like you don't have to tell me, like you can tell me 1,000 times how to do something. Show me once. You know what I mean? So I was the guy, like everybody else has got their pen and paper and they're writing shit down and they're like, you know what? I'm just like, for me, I'm just like, do whatever you do. I don't really care. I don't need to write it down. Just show me once and I've learned it. So, yeah, when it came to that, I was, I can't write. It just, like I said, everybody is different. And I've learned that through, helping teach and train and whatever you want to call it. I mean, there's different styles and techniques for everybody. So,
right, but you can't answer for everyone. So
I can't answer for next one.
So what are some of those specific stages where you're like, look, if you take anything away from this, say these 2 or 3 steps, you need to make sure that you're religious about these things, because everybody's got their sticking points, right?
I'm trying to think. Patience. I don't know.
So here. Let me give you an example of one of mine.
Okay, go ahead.
So one of mine is label everything. Every single piece that you cut needs to be labeled. Which is up? What part is it? Where does it go? What is the left? What is the right? What is up? What is down? What is the inside? What is the outside? Well, don't write on the inside if that's getting cast against us. Go ahead. We'll put that out there right now. But something like that, religious about.
What? For me, it's always been about having enough material. And I know it sounds really weird, but you mean, I no longer. I don't use Kodiak Pro anymore. So you mean with that was very easy because you're only using their bag mix plus their plasticizer, right?
Right.
I'm back to Buddy Rhodes now where I use, all their products instead of ordering like a quart or something where I could run out, I'm always ordering a gallon, or I order a 20-pound bucket, or I order. So I always like to have everything in bulk, because I'm like, if a project goes wrong and you're like, well, fuck, I only ordered a quart and now I need another quart. Well, you know what I mean? For the amount of money you're paying in shipping and all that kind of stuff, for me, it was always important. When you go up to my shelf, there's always, I don't buy like the 1 pound or 2 pounds of pigment when I need a job for a job. I buy a 20-pound pail all the time, religiously, even if I only need fucking 3 grams. I'm just like, you know what? It's better to have more than not enough, because that job that went wrong and you have to recast, if you don't have enough and I guess I'm the king of recasting, because I break a lot of shit, and not because I'm careless. I make big pieces and I take huge risks, and sometimes they break. But my price kind of reflects that. Like, so if I get away making it once, awesome. If I have to make it a second time, it sucks. But you know what though? I still have enough profit in it that I don't, I'm not going to lose money. So if my one thing was going to be is don't underbuy. Always have enough. I'm not sure if that's good enough for what you wanted for your answer, but
oh no, I mean that works great, because like I just ran into this the other day where I thought I had enough Rubio monocoat on hand to seal this walnut vanity, and I had enough for all but 3 drawers.
See, there you go.
So I had to wait. Let's see, I ordered on Saturday, so I had to wait 4 days for it to come in. So I'm just sitting there with a vanity that's half finished, and I just didn't have it. So I mean, it may sound trivial, but like, it's a good thing to keep in mind is like, if you think you need 3 sheets of melamine, maybe get 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Or just something like that. Do you have do you have like a second one to that? Or is that just like a number one? No close second.
Oh God. I'm just like I said, I'm the kind of guy, I'm a fly off the seat of my pants. So to say that I'll probably get off this podcast and be like, oh, I got another one for him. But I don't know. It's that would be. I'm just trying to look around my shop. I'm like, is there anything I need to tell him? I don't know. I don't know. I guess some things that are so just trivial to me, like I guess I don't think of them, and being put on point is always like, you're trying to stutter and you're like, let me think of something, but I'll get off this podcast and I'll end up texting you 1,000 things to be like, I should have said this.
Yeah.
So
I've had a few people do that after the fact. I'm like, shit, I should have said this. Well, like, I guess you got to do another episode then. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Do you prefer doing the so pigments? Do you prefer pure pigments, or do you like the pre-blended ones where it's like a specific color that they've pre-blended for you, or do you like to blend your own?
A lot of the time I blend my own. I'll order whatever pigments from Buddy Rhodes, and I'll blend. I've blended colors before. I had to get a royal blue for a customer.
Nice.
For some countertops I did. So I just kind of, I tell people not to go too crazy, because I'm like, I said, if you start giving me like a Benjamin catalog and be like, I want like this color, I'm like, it's going to get really expensive, because at that point, I'm not sure if I would just get it pre-blended then. I do like playing with pigments. So I charge the customer for it. So, if it's a color I think I can get to, I'll do it myself. I've never ordered a bag of pre-blended pigment. So, or like a, pre-blend mix. So right. I do like to do my own, I guess my own mixes. I used to, it's funny when you go to the one thing, it's funny. I don't know how to phrase this question or this here, or not question, but statement. I find when I went to the concrete design school or whatever, you're focusing so much on the trainers, on what they do and what they've produced and what colors they use. And I think when I was helping train at the time, I always told people, I'm like, go back and do your own thing. No, just use what you've used here. Like, take what you've got here, but do your own thing. Because like, I remember texting Dusty saying, hey, how'd you mix that bumber color? Or how'd you mix that leather color? Like, it's like, I couldn't fucking think for myself. It's like, you know what? Fuck it. Just make my own colors. Like, why do I need to follow what he's done? That worked for him. So for me, it was like, I was always so like just straight lined on what on what I should do. And yeah, now it's funny now that I don't talk to anybody in the concrete world anymore.
Hey,
I've
hey.
no, I was going to say except for you,
here?
but I've kind of separated myself. I've taken myself out of pretty much all the forums other than Plan B, and just because I want to do my own thing now, and I find I was following too much of what everybody else was doing, and it just what colors they were using, what they were doing. You'd be texting them, be like, "Hey, man, like that's a cool color." And for me, it's now about going back to who I am and making my own. Like I said, I don't want to be ordering products that I don't need, that I can just go to the store and pick up myself for an eighth of the cost, and get my own. I don't know, my own flair, my own look out of it, and it's nothing. And everybody can say, yeah, but you learned that from Dusty. Yeah, but Dusty learned it from somewhere. Brandon learned it from somewhere. Everybody learned something from somewhere, and now I'm honestly doing great. Like I feel like I'm making some of the nicest concrete I've made in a long time, and I'm loving it again. So
I'm gonna catch so much flack for this episode.
why? It's gonna be awesome. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna be collateral damage here.
Yeah. Guilty by association.
Shit, there was something that you said that I really wanted to go back to.
Don't get me wrong, though. Yeah, and I just want to reiterate. I have not said anything bad about the Concrete Design School. I have not said anything bad about Gore, or like I said, I'm just trying to do my own thing. Professionally, I think Brandon does great. You mean John Schuler, stand-up guy. You know what I mean? Whether or not I decide to teach, that's on my own thing. I'm going to trust me, you think you're going to get flack over this podcast. I throw up a teaching thing and I'm going to be destroyed on social media. I already know it and I'm expecting it. And I'm okay with that though.
You'll have plenty of people who support you regardless. Like that's the thing that I wish more people understood. And it's so difficult to get it before you get it, if that makes any sense. Like it doesn't matter what you pick to do, whether you decide to do countertops or furniture, if you decide to do concrete or wood, whether you decide to go and charge a whole lot, or if you decide to charge a little bit, there's always going to be a group of people who shit talk you. And there's always going to be a group of people who praise you and encourage you and all that type of stuff. So you might as well just pick what you want to do, because you're going to get both of them either way.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's the thing is, I've always been encouraged. It's funny thing, because I was encouraged for years to just do my own thing. And now I'm going to go on my own path. Like I said, my own path is going to be me going to be doing my own thing. I have no, like I said, I don't talk badly about the Concrete Design School. I think it was great. It taught me a lot. For me, there was things that were missing, and those are the things that I want to teach in moving forward. Whether I get one student or no students or 100 students, I don't know. But I'm willing to I'm still willing to do it, and I want to do it. And like I said, it's just something that I've been passionate about for years now, and I tried to say, hey, I want to do this with you guys. I got fought the whole time.
Okay, so we've beaten that horse enough. So let's
too
leave
many
that
times.
one.
All right.
Okay, so let's leave that behind and not we'll just. It's
you
already
can
bad
delete it
enough.
as many.
Okay, so we've got, you like to pre-blend your own colors, which I think is awesome. I love it when people do their own colors. That's one of my favorite things in the industry. Do you have a particular? Here, let's do a couple quick questions. Do you have a particular pigment that you like the most? Or here,
yeah, you know what it is.
Two questions, two versions.
Okay, here, I'll just tell you this right off the bat. I like 3 colors. My favorite colors, and they're only blended with concrete. There's no fucking pigments.
You're one of those guys.
but it's just I love concrete for the simplicity of what it is and what people want, right? So I always I have white, and then I have a 25% gray with 75% white. I have a 50-50, then I have natural concrete. To me, they're such slight different grays, and I know, but but then there's a lot of cool colors. Like I use a lot of cool gray, to get some different tones of gray. But I fell in love with concrete because of concrete, not pigmenting it and all that kind of stuff. I like the look of the industrial look. So that way there, I kind of just like blending different percentages of white and gray Portland together to get the colors that I like. But that's personal, because I've done a lot of the projects that I have going on. I have tons of colors that I show people that are, everything's pigmented with like cool gray, and that's, and a lot of people pick those colors. But for me, I have, the only colors I keep on hand are black oxide, cool gray, warm gray, walnut, and
nice.
what's the other one? What's the other black there? There's the black oxide and carbon black. Yeah. So those are the only ones I keep on hand. And if I had to carry some blue colors and stuff like that for a project I was working on, but like, unless somebody specifically asked for that, I don't carry a lot of different, variations of like, red, blue, all stuff like that. But, I keep kind of the basics around.
Yeah, see, I keep them all. I think I have all of them.
And there's nothing wrong with that, though.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though, is it's taken me years to get to that point of, did you listen to the Caleb episode?
No, I didn't.
I put a picture up on there. It's like, I have here in front of me, like I have a color wall of all the samples, and there's like 300 colors up there. Like, I'm that guy. So I love that. So you said that you do a lot of really big pieces. Are big pieces and complex pieces. So let's split that in half and do big pieces separate from complex, and then maybe kind of where they merge. So what recommendations would you give to someone who is making kind of those stereotypical pieces? Maybe it's just a normal kitchen, normal size pieces, and they consider, or they would really like to make bigger pieces, but they're scared, right? Because once you start getting bigger, it's harder to transport them. It's harder to flip them. They obviously get much heavier. How would you recommend somebody go about kind of possibly not taking the approach of all in, but kind of transitioning to that, where they're putting some bigger pieces out there?
Well, first of all, if you're going to do a big piece, you better charge for it. So don't. I think when I first started getting into big pieces, I was basically just taking my regular square footage price and didn't really care. I'm like, it's this or this, and it just, okay, it's only 10 feet longer, so I'll just, it's just 10 feet by $85 a square foot. Where I've changed all that dramatically, where I look at how complex a piece is now, or how big a piece is. I look at all the, okay, like, is my table big enough to cast it on? How am I going to flip it? How am I going to move it? How am I going to polish it? And then how am I going to transport it? How am I going to install it? How many guys do I need? Now I look at all of that and think, okay, now I got to start putting dollars and cents to all that kind of stuff. So for me, it's make it worth your while. If you're going to go through the pain of making a big piece, price it where you're not pricing it to get the job. You're pricing it to almost not get it. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Oh yeah.
Because you can price it and get the job, and then you're like, and then after you finish it, you hate your life, because you're just like, why did I ever build that? And it was a struggle. You could break it, and then you're either going back to the customer saying I can't do it, or you're going to go through the pain like me and build it again. My biggest one was Triple Trouble, and that's the one that I'm, I guess that's what a lot of people I was known for, is when I built the 3-legged waterfall, and had a 6-foot sink opening. I built it the first time, and I was like, fuck yeah, there's a picture of me standing on top, and people are like, you're kidding me, like, you're standing on top of the fucking counter. And we got it flipped over. We got it installed the first time successfully, and after I installed it, I spent 7 hours, and I had 12 guys. I had like my nephew's friends, like everybody, like installing this thing, because I didn't know what to expect. So the customer walks up to it, and she's like, how come I don't have a lot of overhang? And I'm like, these are the drawings I was given by the kitchen designer. She's like, well, I can't even fit a chair underneath the front of it. I was like, I'm like, I don't know. Talk to the kitchen guy. So the kitchen guy comes back to me, and he's like, hey, there's supposed to be 10 more inches of overhang here. And this thing is already big. Like, it was 12 feet wide, came at 5 feet. Plus, like I said, it had a big waterfall. It was a T-shape. It had 2 waterfalls off one end, a big one off the other. And basically, we ended up having to make a second one. So the kitchen guy had to eat it, and he had to pay me to make it a second one. So, I had to charge. We couldn't. We had to fracture the piece that was in there now. So I had to think about how am I going to take this out in a finished house, a couple $1 million house. So we had to drill hundreds of holes in it and fracture the legs off and take it out in pieces. And then we had, and then I had to build a new one. And anyways, when I was flipping it the second time, I forgot to brace my cart because I built the cart.
Oh, no.
I built the cart inside. So as it went onto the wheels, the bracing shifted and put pressure on the legs, and I snapped 2 legs off. So, and it took me 5 weeks to build that. You know what I mean? By the time I got, not straight, but you know what I mean? Like you're working on a million other projects. So I snapped the legs off, and I'm like, fuck, because I was supposed to install it in 2 days. So I called the customer. I said, listen, you've already been waiting. I think from the time we had started the original countertop, I think it was like 9 months. Like it was huge. Like from the time we started into this one here, because I did her fireplace. There was a bunch of other work we did for her. And I called her. I'm like, listen, I can put the legs back on. You're going to see a little crack, like where they came. It'll be noticeable, but like we can make it look, because it was a dusty crete, we can kind of blend it in, and you're going to notice a little bit. And I said, or you wait another 6 weeks and I build you another one. She's like, I'd rather another one, which would be the third one. It was funny because when I named it Triple Trouble the first time, because of the triple waterfall, had nothing to do with I was going to build it 3 times. It just had to do. So we ended up, and everybody told me, like, do not build that fucking thing again. You make it, and you tell her that you're making it in 4 pieces. I'm like, no. I'm like, I told this lady that I'm going to do it. And so anyways, we built it. We built it a third time. We flipped it. It took 3 guys to install it, me, my buddy, and another friend. It was hell though. We had to roll it across, like the house was done at this point. It was a year later. We had to roll it across like a $10,000 front entrance floor, and I had to reinforce everything to do it. But so yeah, like I don't even know, I think I lost track. But yeah, like for me, big pieces, there was so much thought that had to go into that. And that's where I think I always tell people, I actually have a girl messaging me right now from the concrete design school. I always tell people, like, I build big shit. People always discourage anybody. Don't build big. But there's people that like me that want to build big anyways. And I'm always like, I've done enough pieces. Feel free to always reach out to me and I'll go through it with you, because that's one thing is I'm methodical when I walk into the house. I want to make sure that it's going to roll down the hallway. I want to make sure that it's going to fit through the doorway. I've swung pieces. I had a customer that said, she lives 7 stories up and she wanted a waterfall. She wanted all one piece countertop. She's like, how are you going to do it in? I'm like, I'll just get a crane. And she's like, well, how are you going to like get it in here? I'm like, I'm just going to swing it between the 2 balconies. I had one above me. So we had like ropes on it, and I had so we're pulling this thing in as we're like lowering the crane so we can get it on the other side of the railing. And, but I've done it. I feel like I've done it all. And so now I tell people, I'm like, hey, listen, if you're stuck on a big project and you don't know how to price it, call me and I'll go through it all with you. So that's kind of what I've been doing for some people that are still in the concrete design school. They do, there's some people that stay in touch with me because they have questions, and I love big pieces. It's a downfall of mine. But I don't discourage people from doing them. A lot of people do. They say, don't do it, seam it, you make just as much money if you seam it. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I don't want to see a seam.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there's a whole another set of headaches that come along with seaming things too. If things don't line up properly, what are you going to use to adhere the 2 pieces? What are you going to put between the 2 pieces? If you get like some color transfer, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So you just have to pick your poison, right? Like, what is the quote? Pick the regret you can live with. Because regardless of what you decide, you're going to have a regret of some kind.
I think I have a lot of regrets then. A lot of them. I live with them well.
So let's take the individual components of the big piece question. So you kind of mentioned the components of pricing everything out and the things that people should consider doing that. And we can't really put dollar amounts with that or whatever funny money people
because
are
everybody
using these days.
Yeah, everybody prices differently, right? So
right, different markets and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So what kind of things would you recommend? So what are some special considerations that people should take into consideration? Okay, that's way too many times using that word. So what should people think about when forming big pieces up? Both 3D pieces, so the 3-legged, like a 3-legged piece like you were talking about, and just really long runs of pieces with either a sink cut out in the middle of it or an integral sink or something like that? What are some things that people need to be mindful of when going through and doing that exercise?
Well, the first thing I always look at, and what my brother always says, will it fit in the house? Does it have to go, up 20 stairs? Does it have to go up 5 stairs? So for me, the first piece is the whole process. If a customer's like, hey, I want to, like, I've done a 16-foot long countertop with a 5-foot island connected to it off the other end. And I had to go to the guy's house. He has a very small house. And I'm like, okay, like, how do I even attempt to do this?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to look
how
at
do you get it in?
Yeah, to me, it's not about building big pieces. Can I get it in the house?
Mm-hmm.
That's the only obstacle I ever have. I don't care how big the piece is. Can I get it from my shop into where it has to go? And that's, so for me, the sky's the limit on the size I'll build. We have enough machinery around here. I could probably make a 40,000 pound piece if I really wanted to, and move it easily. So for me, it's never about the size of the piece. It's about how do I get it into the house? That's always the biggest challenge. Do you have to swing it up through balconies? Do you have to crane it up? Do you have to crane it? I'm doing one right now where I got to crane it up 4 stories to a flat roof. They have like a walkout flat roof. So we're doing, huge backsplashes that are 12 feet long with window inserts in them. So that was the first thing, is like, okay, I'm not going to walk up your your staircase 4 flights. And so I'm like, I'm just going to crane it up. So for me, the first step is, will it fit? That's the first step. Is if a customer, comes to me and says, I want this, I look at the house and how am I going to get it in? Are the doorways big enough? Because the one I did that was 16 feet long with a 5-foot, the 5-foot island off the end of it. I looked at it all. I'm like, yeah, it's going to go in the house. And I never thought to think of the height going through the doors. So we ended up having to take out the patio doors, and we had to put it on a 45. I had to build a cart with this on a 45, and we actually only made it in by an inch on either side. Because I'm like, I already told the guy, I'm like, yeah, I'll bring it in one piece, but I never took it. Like, there's certain things at that time I didn't take into consideration. I'm like, yeah, I can just bring it in through here and it'll be fine. But then I realized, fuck, like, thank God it fit, or else we would have been like tipping this thing up to, to do it. So, is it going to fit? And that's where it always starts with big pieces, is and then the second one is, how are you going to get there? Do you have a trailer big enough to take it? Luckily enough, I have float trailers, enclosed trailers. We now have a flatbed delivery truck with a moffat on the back. Like, for me, sky's the limit on what I can do. But for other people, they don't have all these things. So you're either going to rent something, you're going to rent the U-Haul, or you're going to do that. And then from there, it's figuring out how many guys it's going to take. Usually I overestimate how many men, just because it's better to have more than not enough, because I don't want anybody to struggle. So, I basically look at it as 150 to, depending on who's helping me, 150 pounds to 200 pounds per person. And that's kind of how I justify how many people I need. So, but again, everything's different. Like the Triple Trouble, the last time, it was 2,600 pounds and it was like 3 guys to install it. So, everything's relative on how you're doing it.
Are there any things that you try to do to the molds to kind of make them more robust as you're making some of these pieces? Bracing or anything like that?
Oh my God. I over brace, I overform everything. That's part of my forming class, is like, when I did teach it, more is, you can't have enough. Even, back in the day, I remember Jake Brady made a comment on one of my, I was forming some fireplace mantle pieces, and he was making fun of, like, like the forestry industry, like how we're cutting down so many trees is because I'm using so much material. But at the same time, I don't want to talk about hydraulic pressure too much, but I've had my fails with hydraulic pressure. So now I build everything because I vibrate everything, and a lot of guys don't. Every big pour I do, the tables are vibrated as I'm pouring them, and I don't run them on high, but I run the vibrators so that everything flows and whatever. And with running vibrators, you're creating a massive amount of hydraulic pressure. So I form knowing that I'm going to use that I'm going to basically put these forms to the max. So I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Do you have okay, so a couple pieces to that. What vibrators do you like to use? Do you have a particular brand or size or
No,
power that
man.
you like to use?
I just use a pneumatic one. I just buy these. We found one from an old shop that we were in. It's just like, oh yeah,
I'll
it's
take
like
this.
yeah. No, like when my brother was doing his because my brother does like precasted concrete caps, windowsills, all that kind of stuff, and a bunch of custom stuff like that. Anyways, and he had a guy come in and work with him. He's like, I found this in one of my old concrete shops I worked in, and basically we just use this shitty vibrator, and you can just set the dial to like how much it spins. Either it vibrates the fucking shit out of our table, or I can set it like on the slow. So it just and I know Troy Atkins, another concrete guy, he asked me where to get them, and I kind of Googled it, and he bought 2 of them, has them on his table. I know he uses them, but like I said,
do you remember which ones?
I don't off the top of my head, but I'm like looking at it right now. I'm just gonna show you. Hang on a second here, because you're gonna laugh. You're gonna be like, wow, like this thing is like, but yeah, like this is what I bolt to my tables. You know what I mean?
It?
And that's it. So it has
how many of those do you use?
Depending on the project, we have 2, but I basically bolt it to wherever I'm working.
Oh my gosh.
Wherever I'm pouring, and I basically just turn it on, and depending on the speed I'm looking for the concrete to flow, I'll either just turn up the air on it or turn it down, and it works perfect for me. I've been to classes where they're like, you have to buy these or you have to buy these, and they're like $1,500, and I'm like, fuck that, like just buy this thing. It's $200. You can set and it works for me. It just, I'm not saying that all those other ones are no good. It just, I had this one lying around for free, and it works, and it works great for me.
Hey, sometimes you just have to use the thing that you have. I mean, money doesn't fall from the sky, so sometimes that's the answer to the problem.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, even for tools, I use a relatively shitty scale. It does the job for me. I wasn't willing to go out and buy some kind of industrial scale that measures to the exact gram. Like I have my little gram scale that I use, and my pound scale, and I get by with what I have. I haven't bought all the cool little tools yet, and I don't know if I ever will.
Do you have any particular tools where you have spent that extra money where you're like, it was totally worth every penny I spent on it? And it could be a cheaper tool. It could be one of those things where I'm pretty sure it was Josh Thiel. I can never remember how to pronounce his last name. Sorry, Josh. Where he got what was it? It was one of the mixers from Harbor Freight, I think it was.
Okay.
And he said, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I'm like, more people need to know about this, because that could be an option where it's a hell of a lot cheaper than, was it Eimer?
Well, there's now you're talking the column mix. Yeah. Cause I have a column mix, because Gore was he was a dealer for a column mix. And at the time, I bought it for cost or whatever, but yeah. So I have a column mix. Do I like it? Yeah, it's awesome. I know other guys that use the ones from Harbor Freight, but they've burnt them out halfway through a project, and like this column, like my column mix, I've put it through the fucking paces, and it's.
Do you use the single or double?
Single. Yeah, single. So I use a single. I only use it for my SCC mixes. Everything I do, ECC is done in my Armor mixers. So
which one do you have, and which one do you like that one, or did you
have the one
with another?
No, I have the 120. I've always been like, I want a 360 or even a 720, but the thing is, I can only handle so much concrete at a time, and I've got it down to a science where I make 200-pound batches. That's it, and I can take a batch out of the mixer. I get my next batch started, and by the time I'm done, I walk back and forth as I'm laying my concrete, and by the time I'm out of my bucket of my 200-pound mix that I have on hand, the other 200 pounds is ready to go. And I'm very repetitive on like, I've got it down to a science where the 120 is enough. Like, people are always like, yeah, like I'm going to use this or I'm going to use that. I can't be like, I'm worried about, concrete kicking off, and it going to get hard. So if I mix up a 600-pound batch in an Eimer 360 and I can't place it fast enough, like I don't want to deal with like 200 or 300 pounds of material getting harder. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you like the 120?
The 120 is my favorite. We went through. Unfortunately, my brother uses aggregate in it. So we're on our 5th Eimer in the last 5 years.
Jeez.
So yeah, we go through. Well, we're an Eimer dealer too, so we get them at cost. So we just like, because I told my brother, I'm like, listen, if we're gonna buy these things, like, why don't we just become a distributor for them? So my brother, because of his, I can't personally be it because I haven't been in business long enough. My brother, he's he got the distributorship for that. I'm actually a Buddy Rhodes distributor. I was a Buddy Rhodes distributor before I was a Kodiak Pro distributor, because my brother has it. But I mean, I don't know, like, it's just one of those things where, anything we do, we always overdo it. It's like, if we're going to do this, we might as well fucking distribute it or, do whatever.
So if somebody's thinking about getting the 120, what are some like best practices with it? Like it really excels at this and this not so much.
Don't overload it. Don't overload it.
What does that actually translate to?
Well, I know with Kodiak Pro, Dusty uses like 300. He'll do 300 pounds at a time because it's like an SCC mix. Where I've done up to 400 pounds as a SCC mix. But when you're doing ECC, don't even, like, I personally don't try to, like, when I'm doing a Buddy Rhodes mix, I never do over more than 200 pounds because I just end up tripping breakers and all that kind of stuff. I always make sure that we have a good extension cord, like a heavier, duty extension cord. Instead of like a 14 gauge, we use like a 12 gauge extension cord on it. And it's not like 50 feet long, it's like 10 feet long. Just because, you don't want to strain it kind of thing. So with the Eimer, I just don't overload it because it's not worth the hassle of, like, I can get an extra 100 pounds in there. It's like, you're just going to be tripping breakers. Like in some of my videos, you'll see me running back and forth to my breaker panel, re-tripping the breaker because I'm, I keep tripping it, and it's a hassle, especially when, I do 1,000-pound, 1,200-pound pours by myself. So, as I'm doing all this, like, it starts to frustrate me when I'm running to the breaker panel, knowing that I have mud in the bucket, I got mud in the mixer, and it starts to get aggravating. So that's why I don't overload my mixer. I mix 200 pounds at a time. That's all it's really rated for. And
So so is that regardless of what mix you do, even if it's ECC, you just stick at the 200, or do you go a little bit higher?
Sorry. So the ECC 200, no more than 200. SCC, you could do 300 pounds pretty easily because it's a very wet mix. So yeah, I'll do 300 pounds of an SCC with it. I used to never do SCC in my Eimers. I like doing with the column mix by hand, no matter if it was 1,000 pounds or whatever. I'll just set up 5 batches in my buckets. Because for me, it's important to see the flow. So basically, when I'm spinning it with a column mix and I can see it, like, how fast it's moving, that's how I determine when it's ready. But in my Eimer, it's too slow and too easy to know. Okay, like, I had to put my hand in and lift up some out
see
and then
how
let
fluid
it.
it is.
So I love my column mix for SCC. I've been doing a lot more. I think I'm just getting lazier now, so I do a lot of my SCC in the Eimer now. But most of my biggest projects I've ever done have all been mixed by hand. Anything that was SCC, I did by hand.
Do you spray, or you just do SCC and ECC?
That's, what, I'd have to say, Gore always says, if you like pain, spray. I never learned how to spray. I do have a sprayer. I've sprayed one piece before. I probably could save myself a lot of forming if I sprayed. I can't say that I'm any good at it. I never really tried it, so I don't bother. I don't bother. Doing that. So.
Well, I mean, it goes back to what was just said a little while ago. It's like, pick your regret. Like, there are pros and cons to every single method that we use. Just pick the ones that you like the most and the best, and which ones you work with. And
I know and there's a lot of great guys. Like, I look at their work and I'm just like, and they're doing, they're spraying it all, and I'm like blown away on how good it looks. And listen, it's an awesome method. It's just a method that I never really took the time to learn or get any good at. I'm good at forming, so pouring SCC to me is just like second nature. Like, so I also know it 95% of the time it's going to turn out exactly how I want it, because, like I said, I overform and I overdo everything. And where I hear all the horror stories of spraying the face coat delaminating from this, which I even learned when I went to Plan B in Phoenix. Is we were spraying that tub, and I remember part of it, the face coat came apart from the SCC coat. Like, so to me, it's like I wouldn't want to go through a huge project like that and everything start to separate. Where I know I just pour it and I don't have to worry about anything. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my main thing with that is like I pick everything based off aesthetics. Like I don't care how I get there. I just know what my aesthetic is and that's what I want to get. I don't care what the hardship is that I have to go through to get that. Like that's part of what I do. So like Martin does a really good job of spraying. Like he does a phenomenal job of getting just a very consistent look, which blows my mind because I can't get that for shit.
Yeah.
And then you've got shops like Brent up in, I know he's up there in Canada with you. I mean, but he sprays rapid set and he's just, I don't even know how he does what he does. I'm not even going to try. So there are plenty of examples of like, pick whatever method and aesthetic you like. You can always find somebody to help you out. That's interesting that you stick primarily with those two application methods. What are some of the things that you do that really help you with the bracing? Are you using like 2x8s, 2x6s, or are you using
no 3/4 inch plywood? No, just 3/4 inch plywood. I rip it all into 6-inch wide, and then I just basically I'll pocket screw it all into my forms. So I used 2x4s once, but because you can bend a 2x4. You take a piece of 3/4 inch plywood, 6 inches, and you try to bend it, you ain't fucking bending it. So I remember when I did this fireplace one time, is I friggin' used more 2x4s than I thought you could shake a stick at. And when I came in the next day, the backs had bowed about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm almost like, but yeah, you could take a 2x4 and put it against the table and you can bend it. You can't do that with a piece of 3/4 inch plywood though. Like you're not going to bend that unless you're putting a lot of force on it, but not enough. So everything I do, all my bracing is usually out of 3/4 inch plywood. Is if I'm building anything big. Sometimes I get lazy these days if it's just a small waterfall or something like that. And I mean small, but not very tall. Like if they're only, let's say 24 inches high, I'll use 3/4 inch malamine or something like that because I know there's not going to be a great amount of pressure. But if I'm going to do one that's on the end of a counter that's 36 inches or so, I'd use I always go something beefier because one thing I've gotten really good at is building. Like I've built a lot of waterfalls and never had any issues with them. Just because I've always overdone it.
What length of a pocket hole screw do you use to do that so you're not getting that bubble on the other side?
1.25 inches. Okay. Yeah, everything's 1.25 inches. 1.25 inches, and everything's just braced. Just I'll go every 8 inches, and I'm kind of like I said, the OCD. Like I'll cut myself little blocks, and then I put it on this one, then I put the next one on top, and I just when you look at my form work, it's all beautiful. Like everything's exact. You know what I mean? So when you look from one end to the other, you're just like, yeah, he he doesn't just throw it together.
Hey, it's the age of Instagram, man. You gotta better get a good picture.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Oh well, that's interesting because I've seen a couple of people use the plywood method and then using that. It just seems like it eats up a lot of time with adding on to form work and all, because then you're having to rip down a whole another sheet of material. For me, there's a bit of humbleism in all of that. Meaning, I don't mind taking I'm only one guy in the shop. I don't have employees that I'm paying. So for me to take an extra, I love woodworking. So for me to sit there and rip down, a bunch of sheets and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't bother me at all. If it's and a lot of people say you like pain, you like overdoing it. I love the form work is my passion. It was never concrete. I was always a good woodworker, and that's where I got really people are like, well, where'd you learn this? And it's funny because everybody always wants to take credit of where you learned. I didn't learn my form work from Dusty or Brandon or anybody else. You're gonna get in shit for that one too. The horse that's dead. Come on, man. The horse is dead. Yeah. Leave it alone.
No. But I'm just saying, I was always good at woodworking. So for me, that was the easy part, and that's all I'm saying is you mean my form work is something that I already had, I just needed to see a glimpse of how to do something small, and then I kind of put it all together, like how to do something bigger. And I've formed some amazing pieces. Like I said, that's all me. That wasn't anybody else guiding me or teaching me. So like I said, the form work came easy to me. The concrete, was the only part I never really had. So
do you keep those strips, the 6-inch strips of
yes,
that you use for bracing? You keep those?
yep. I think honestly, and, you make a good point though. It is time consuming, absolutely. I know a lot of guys they'll use square tubing, probably like they're probably using like 2x4 square tubing. I think down the road, if I keep into some of the projects, I might just get like random lengths of square tubing, and I'll use C clamps on the ends to clamp stuff together. That'll probably add, it probably speed things up a lot. But right now I enjoy the woodworking. It doesn't bother me to like rip 30 pieces and pocket hole screw them all on, because I love the look. It's weird because I love the look of my formwork after I'm done. Like it looks like a piece of art on its own. And everybody's like, wow, what are you gonna do with that afterwards? I'm like, nothing. I tear it apart and it's fucking half it's garbage. You know what I mean? Like, but that's just the way it goes.
How much of that are you able to salvage?
Usually only the. I'm the worst.
Like I imagine you're SCC, and so like you've got stuff that's kind of pouring all over the place every once in a while.
I'm pretty clean when I do all that stuff. Like no, but I'm just saying, like I always build like chutes and stuff like that, because I only pour from one side, right? So I'll always build like a chute so I don't have like shit going everywhere. I'd say I was really bad at first. I'd toss, other than the whalers, I'd throw everything out. I'd just be like, But my brother has humbled me that way. Like he reuses a lot of his stuff. So with me, SCC has to be perfect, right? You can't have a scratch in the melamine or anything like that. So now with his caps that he builds, it doesn't matter if there's a little scratch here or there on the stuff that he builds. So now I'm able to, I probably salvage 80% of what I use, but for another use for my brother though. You know what I mean? Like he'll use it because he can reuse it for his stuff. For me, I don't resalvage a lot of stuff for myself unless I'm doing. Sometimes I'll use it as a backer mold, or I'll cut I cut strips out of it and stuff like that for ECC, but I'll never use it again for SCC.
Is that because you run the risk of something soaking into any like little pinners that you get in the melamine?
Yeah, or any like SCC pour, like it's like a mirror, right? So anything anything that got onto that melamine, if it gets scratched when taking it off, well, it's going to show up in the next piece, right? So when I'm pouring SCC, I'm always buying brand new sheets, and I make sure they're, even how I load them in the truck. Like I make sure that I'm not fucking just like they all get slid in nicely. I don't, I try not to scratch the faces of them, because I'm always, I've had one piece where I made it, and right in the middle there's like this 8-inch scratch. You can't see it in the melamine, but it was there, and I'm like, fuck, you know what I mean? And I'm polishing, and I find you can never get that shit out, no matter what you do, it's there. So
yeah, are you is that 80%? Of that 80%, do you reuse anything?
I probably reuse. I might only reuse 20% of it.
Oh, so you like if you're a shop there by yourself, you would only reuse about 20%. Is that apply to both the melamine and the plywood, or just the ply?
The plywood, no, I'll reuse all the plywood. I'm thinking, sorry, I guess the plywood I'll reuse for as many projects as I can. Depending, I mean, sometimes I'll have to cut it down. And as for the melamine, it all depends, because sometimes I'm busting that stuff apart just to get it off the mold, right? Or off, you know what I mean, to get it off of it. So it all depends on the project I'm working on. The bigger the pieces, like if it's big, I'll reuse it for some of my ECC countertops. Like I'll cut it into 2-inch strips as long as it's still good. So, I think I've been trying to get better with that, but I can't. I personally, well, my brother uses it faster than I can get through it. So right now I'm only using probably, let's say 20%, where he's using the other 60%. So it's all, but if I was in a shop by myself, I know somebody who's really good at it, Jason Robertson. His wife saves like everything they take apart, and she'll reuse like everything. So, which is good practice to have, right? Because I mean, the cost of materials have went up, substantially in the last, I'm not sure if they've come down in the US, but here they're still high as hell. And so yeah, you want to save every dollar you can get, right? So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like to see how other people like reuse the different materials that they have on hand because I'm not like a hippie tree hugger type person at all, but I like to be practical about it too. Like
Yep.
there's to needlessly throw things away or damage things seems a little, even if you were just to take it practically, like you could like if you have your base plate that you have that's your countertop, whatever, you could easily flip it, rip it into rails, and then reuse it. Like even
Yep.
if it has a scratch in, well, not if you're doing SCC, but even if it has a scratch in it, you could, if you're a rapid set shop, it just do that stuff because you're just going to polish it out anyways. It doesn't even matter.
Yep.
Um, do you use rapid set or do you stick with pretty much just Portland?
I've used a little bit of rapid step if I'm speeding, if I want to speed something up a little bit. I'm
Hmm.
not really. Again, I
Not a
haven't
rapid set
gotten.
guy.
No, I have. I watched. You mean I know, like when I went to Plan B, like they used it like it was going. I mean, everything was rapid set. Like they just, went crazy with it.
Yeah, oh
And
yeah.
but for me, again, if I worked in a shop, like let's say I went and worked with Jake Brady, or I went and worked with Cody on something, or whatever, and that's all
Hmm.
they were using, then yeah, I would be like, okay, like I feel comfortable using this, but I'm not. I stick to what I know. I don't know rapid
Hmm.
set, and I'm not gonna start fucking with it. I've talked to Jake Brady years ago, and he kind of gave me a rundown of stuff like that, and then I was just, but I still wasn't confident. I'm like, nah, I'm like, this
Hmm.
isn't me. Like, I don't like to trial and error too much stuff on my own because I don't know it well enough. So
Yeah, I mean, it's a
yeah,
whole nother monster. It's
it is a monster. Oh, I
yeah.
remember being at Plan B and they were going to pour a table, and
Hmm.
all of a sudden, like within like minutes, it was like rock hard in the bucket, right? Like, so for
Hmm.
me, like that's scary. If I'm working by myself and I've got like all this to cast, and I've got to be like rushing around like an idiot. I mean, I would just be so stressed out. In my shop, it's all a controlled environment. I know how everything's going to kick off, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And, I got the music going, and it's just a nice, relaxing, I'd say 85% of my pours are nice and relaxing. Like I just walk around, I feed my mixer, I
Hmm.
cast, and I go back and feed my mixer. Then I, cast some more, and I go through it all. Sorry, it's just the air release on our air dryer. It goes off every once in a while. So, but yeah, so you mean like for me, it's just whatever. I just, to add in a stressor of like rapid set, it's not for me.
Hmm. Well, I mean, you seem to have somewhat of a chill personality. Well, this is the interesting part is Brent, who loves rapid set. He has got the most chill, relaxed, mellow personality of anybody that I've ever met. But he is all about some rapid set. He is like, you just slick that hair back and off we go. And I'm like, who are you?
Yeah,
So it's fascinating seeing the difference between people and some of these um, intricacies that you have where it's like these two people can't be the same person. There's just no way.
yeah,
uh, are there? Oh, okay. So big pieces. Still back to the big pieces. What are
yep.
some things that you have run into that you would caution people about? Where they'll run into this issue because they're new with flipping pieces. Flipping pieces seems to be where if something's going to go wrong, it's
100%.
usually going to be flipping it or transporting it. So how can
Yep.
people, what should people be aware of and how can they avoid those pitfalls?
Don't be me. That's that's the thing. Don't be me. I've flipped pieces the worst way you can see. I transported pieces, and I'm just like, and people are like, "You're such a fucking idiot." Um, Flipping pieces. You know what? Um, I think Kevin McDonald is probably the best at flipping pieces. Like he doesn't flip anything without having a sink saver on it. He's always got his sink saver on before he flips pieces. Make sure that any holes are secured and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's to me that's always if it's just a big square piece, like let's say you're building a table or an island that's got no sinkhole in it, and it's just I don't know 8 feet long by 4 feet wide. Listen, I'd have two guys. I'd just lift that some bitch up, flip it over.
Hmm.
If you've got a hole in it, like for a sink or something like that, yeah, I'd probably say throw a sink saver on it. It'll be a little bit more careful because you don't want to jar two different ways, right?
Hmm.
So for me or when I'm doing L pieces, I mean we just flip an L piece off. I usually have one person on the L and two people on the run, and just to make sure that it all goes up evenly. Because like that's where I've broken pieces. I've never broken a piece. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. I just broke a piece recently at a customer's house. That was because I transported like a fucking retard, and so I shouldn't say that. It's like 2022. But anyways, I transported like
you're gonna get canceled.
Yeah, I definitely gonna get reamed on that one. I transported on its flat on the cart. So basically,
oh come
I know,
on, noob.
but it wasn't far, and it was 12 feet long, and it wasn't far. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, we're just going down the road, not very far. Well, I shouldn't say just down the road. It was like 10-minute drive, but I had it strapped to the cart. But even from the bouncing up and down, right? Mm-hmm. I ended up putting stretch cracks in it. So we went to go pick it when we rolled it across our front yard, which was like, mm-hmm. And we went to go tip it up. Anyways, it fucking fell into 3 pieces. So that was the first
transport time... L's flat. Gotcha.
Yeah. No, that actually wasn't even an L. That was just a straight piece. Yeah, that was just a straight piece. So that was a huge mistake on my part. Never again. I mean, it was just like I was lazy and I just wanted to get it done. So yeah. So for me, it's always about just kind of looking at everything, making sure you have enough people. Don't hurt yourself. We flip pieces off my table all the time. I always know if they're going to break, either during or before or after. I've noticed some hairline cracks in my pieces before I've even lifted them. And I'm like, this is probably going to break, guys. Like, so don't, like, we'll do it, but just, if it breaks, just let it go. And, so I've probably broken a few tops. Everybody's going to say he's broken a lot more than a few, but I've broken a few. So, it just, like I said, I think Kevin McDonald has it the best, where he puts a sink saver on everything before he flips it. Make sure that the sinks are always well supported before you're rolling that thing over. So
yeah, I've been messaging with Kevin. He's on my short list of people to get on here, so that I'll talk with him about that.
Oh, you got to get him on. Me and Kevin, anytime I'm building something big, I'm like, would you do this? He's like, fuck yeah, I would. I'm like, okay, perfect. That's all I needed to know. And he's kind of the same way. Back in the day, he was like that with me. He'd be like, how would you do this or whatever? So, we don't talk very often about when we do. It's only about like, would you build this? I'm like, fuck yeah, I would. And he'd be the same way. He's like, dude, you've already built, 20 feet long. What's 22 feet long? Like, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. So.
We'll call him and bust his balls. Tell him to schedule some time. I got to message him to do that too.
Yeah, no, he's a hard man to knock. That guy's so busy. For him to sit down and be patient with you for like an hour or an hour and a half, he'd just be like, yeah, it would kill him. It would kill him.
I think what I might have to do is do it in like little pieces or whatever, because it's just like, well, it doesn't have to be X amount of time. We can do X amount of time over the course of a couple months, but whatever.
Yeah, he needs to have like a GoPro while he's like out for a jog or working out, doing it while he's like working out or working on a concrete countertop or something.
Yeah, that is one thing that I wanted to talk with him as well. Is like, there's very few people in our industry who take care of themselves.
Oh my God, that guy's an animal.
Personal standpoint, like, it's and that's one of the things we're going to talk about too, is him doing 75 hard.
Yeah. Well, he inspired me after he did that. I messaged him like, dude, I'm like, you inspired me. And I downloaded 75 hard, and I was like, fuck that. Like, that
Did you start it? Did you try it?
If I didn't even get past reading it, like, let's put it that way.
Oh my gosh, weenie.
But it's hard. Like, I just couldn't. I guess I had a lot of personal issues going at the time where I couldn't. What it was asking of you. To me, I was just like, okay, like, work out twice a day, do this, do that. And I'm like, I can't even work out once a day, for Christ's sake, let alone twice a day and whatever.
45 minutes. One of them has to be outside. Yep.
Yeah. So, I started reading through it and I'm like, oh my God, like, kudos to Kevin. Like, he killed it. And then he did it a second time. And
I think he's all the way on phase 3.
Yeah. Like, he does inspire me. And I told him that as soon as he posted the pictures, I'm like, dude, you inspire me, like, as a guy that just kills it in work. And then, you're whatever. So, I love Kevin. We've only met you mean personally once when I was in Phoenix. He's a great guy, great character. But we communicate a lot on Messenger or I'll call him if I have a question or something like that, and vice versa. We probably only talk like once every 6 months, but yeah, like I reposted something recently of something that he did because we both love the big pieces and stuff like that, and he's just, like I said, as a person, physically and work wise, like, guy kills it. He's, and I know he's a great family man too. So
yeah, I want to take one step back and then we'll take 2 steps forward. So I want
right.
to finish with the transporting of the big pieces because people are
Okay.
because that's the part that gets left out of a lot of the schools, and you're like, what the fuck, man? Come on now. So transporting big pieces. How would people not do it like you so that they can get pieces there in one piece?
Well, everything has to be, obviously everything has to be transported on its side, kind of thing. In my trailer, I've kind of went a couple different ways on how I do everything now. I know Dusty Baker, he uses A-frames now and stuff like that. Like, he bought a steel A-frame that he can roll into. It's a great idea. I don't have that kind of money to throw at something like that right now. But so some guys will put it on an A-frame cart in their shop, and then they just basically roll it into the trailer, and they'll secure it, in the center of the trailer with straps and all that kind of stuff, which is a great idea. Probably the best way to do it. For me, I basically, I have my trailer set up with 2x4s on the side that are basically kind of doubled. So like one going up, one going sideways, so it gives me an 1.5 inch gap. And now I use C-clamps for everything. I remember back in the day, we were using just like the regular pumps, but those things fail after about 40 seconds. Then I was using a lot of ratchet straps, but I find I was using ratchet straps everywhere, and they still don't secure everything as tight as I'd want it from moving around. So now I use C-clamps for everything. I have I probably have actually I was just saying I need to get more, but I use like 6-inch C-clamps, and basically when my pieces go in, I drop it behind the 2x4, I'll put a piece of cardboard or something like that behind the piece, and then I'll C-clamp it tight, and they're not going anywhere after that. So that's how I personally do it.
Are you putting show faces out, or are you putting them against the?
So all my finished faces go into the walls with blankets. So anything, any faces always get a blanket between them, no matter what. I don't want them, because what happens is, transporting them, the vibration. I've had it happen once, even with the strap. I had a strap around a corner that was unprotected, and the strap, wore through the sealer. And then when I got to the place, I had to kind of reseal and touch up a spot. So anything where a strap is going to touch, or pieces are going to touch wood or whatever, the vibration from the trailer or the truck ride, that's a lot more than you think. So you always want to make sure there's a blanket in between any of those, just so that you don't get any wear on the product. From from transporting from your shop to the customer's house.
So one of the things that you had mentioned is you used a crane a couple of times. So let's say that somebody has never gone through that process ever. What does the process look of going about, say, finding somebody that can like how do you find the crane? How do you vet the company? How do you go about, I guess, securing the piece so that it goes up properly, and then you can disconnect it properly? What does that whole process look like for somebody who has no experience with that whatsoever?
I think honestly, a lot of the time with a crane company, it comes. So whenever I call a crane company, I've had some of them go out to the site themselves to make sure that they have room for the crane, because everybody just never looks at all the. I was a roofer for 10 years, so for me, craning where they could get in and out of, because you always got to look at overhead wires. Can they even get in here? So a lot of the time, if you don't know what you're doing, a lot of the crane companies will go out and they'll look at the site before they'll either Google Maps it and look, or Google Earth it, so they can see kind of where it is, if there's any overhead wires or any anything they have to. So sometimes the crane company will do some of the due diligence themselves, so that you don't have to worry about certain things, because they'll say, well, I just looked at it on Google Earth, and there's like, where do you expect me to park the crane? And you're like, I don't know, can you not park it on the road? And they're like, no, I can't fucking reach 100 feet to the house. You mean, and with your product. So sometimes the crane companies will already take out some of that guesswork for you, because they'll look on Google Earth, or they'll actually go to the site, where I've had that done a few times. So, I mean, as for carting it, when we did the one waterfall, I basically just kind of had a wooden cart built underneath that was on wheels, so I could roll it out of my trailer, but I had it kind of braced inside. So it was just a kind of a L-shaped cart on the bottom, had a couple 2x4s go up and over, so it was kind of strapped, locked into that cart, and we just slung our basically our straps around that, which went onto a D hook, and he just lifted up basically like on my cart. So therefore, he wasn't just on the concrete. So if it broke apart, you mean he wouldn't be dealing with, two falling pieces. He was taking it up on my wooden crate. I mean, I've seen Jake Brady just friggin' crane the concrete. I'm thinking, like, if anything happened while I was in the air,
Jake's fucking crazy though.
Yeah. So, and I look at that, I was like, man, if anything ever happened, or there was a crack that you didn't see or whatever, or the crane fucking bounced and, you broke it, you'd have concrete falling from the sky. The one I'm doing on, Thursday or Friday, I'm not sure what day the crane, it was raining here today, so we were supposed to do it this afternoon. I'm going to build an A-frame, basically just going to take a regular pallet. I'm going to build an A-frame onto the pallet. It doesn't have to look anything spectacular, just so I can basically stack my pieces against it. We're going to send up like 2 or 3 pieces at a time, but that way the crane can come in. And usually so cranes will have different hookups for them. They'll either have kind of like a ball with like a hook on it, or they can hook up a kind of forks. So what happens when they put their forks in, it's on like a lever, and it automatically kind of tilts back. So that way when I put everything in on an A-frame that's already lean, it'll even be leaning harder back kind of on the crane section. So when they boom it up, it'll all be strapped to this A-frame, and then that A-frame will get picked up by the crane and get sent to the roof on a pallet kind of thing. So, and we'll probably do like, I think 3 or 4 lifts on that day. Yeah, because I have a bunch of backsplashes and countertops that got to go up. So,
do you usually just ask, like, when, I'm assuming that you've probably used the same companies a couple times now, but when you initially used those first couple companies, did you just like Google crane company, crane company near me, or was it more of asking around?
Well, for me, I know a lot of people in the industry. My cousin actually works for a crane company, so I'll if I'm near the area where I know he works at, I'll ask him. A lot of the time, you can just Google, crane company near me, and it'll give you 3 or 4. Usually, I just look for rates, what their minimums are. A lot of them have a 4-hour minimum. I typically only need them for like an hour, so I try to work with a crane company, because I know that they'll give me a better rate if I say, I don't care what time it is. If you guys are leaving a job and you guys have an extra hour, if you want to head to my site, that way they might not charge you the 4-hour minimum, because you're kind of just making a little bit extra money for them, because like their driver doesn't have to come back right away, instead of saying, no, I need you here at 9 o'clock. And if you're if you just had a little bit of patience and they had to be, so they'll block you in for that 4 hours. Well, now you're paying for that 4 hours. So for me, I try to do it where I'm like, hey, like, are you guys available Thursday? And they're like, well, we're busy till 2 o'clock. Perfect. If you guys are on the way back to the shop and you want to come by my job site, I know I only need you for an hour. And then, that way I might get around a 4-hour minimum charge, because I didn't specifically say you need to be here at this time. I kind of leave it up to them, so that they might be more fair with me, being like, we were only there for 2 hours. So we were driving by anyways, so we'll just charge you for 2 hours. And it's typically, I don't know, probably $175 an hour. So you might only get dinged for, $300, $325 or whatever, versus, $600 or $700 or $800. So
what does that conversation look like with the customer, with having like kind of an open-ended time like that? But like, look, we need to be a little bit more fluid on the time. But we could, like, I don't know if you want to let them know that you might get a discount or something like, because that seems like you might end up with a shorter response time.
But that means nothing to me though, like, because they don't know what I charge. Like, I don't put in, all my quotes, I don't put in crane charge. It's just my labor. Like, if I get a crane, that goes into my all. I don't even break down into labor and material. It's just, there's my cost, and I already added in, labor, materials, and whatever is already in there. So if I make an extra $200 because I'm willing to wheel and deal with the crane guy, you mean that's on me. Typically if I do any craning, I'm not installing the same day. So what I'll do is I plan to go and crane everything up. We'll take everything off the carts. I might install a few pieces if I have enough guys there, because we're just basically setting them into place. But I won't do any final sets. I don't sit there and do the sinks. So I try to be very open with my customers, being like, listen, we're craning on Thursday. I'll be back Friday morning and I'll finish the install. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go there Thursday. We're going to send them all up. We'll put some, because I'm going to have like 4 or 5 guys there anyways. We'll take them all off. We might just throw a bunch of stuff. I know I say throw it into place, but I'm just saying, yeah. But we'll go around. We'll place all the big pieces while I got everybody there, and then I'll just tell everybody to go home. I'm like, okay, we're done here for the day, and then I tell the customer I'll be back tomorrow. Because even a 500-pound top, I can kind of hit it, to move an eighth of an inch, left or right myself, anyways. So or I'll bring somebody back if I need. But most of my installs, I rarely have anybody with me. I might get my brother and my dad and my other brother to help me do the install. Then they leave. As soon as the counter's in place, everybody's gone, and I'm by myself for the rest of it, putting the sinks in, shimming either the counter to the left or the right or whatever. So typically an install with a crane, I'm going to be there 2 days anyways. I crane everything up when it's convenient for the crane, because for me, unless the customer's like, listen, I can, you have to do it at this time, and I'll be like, okay. But most of my customers have been honestly pretty awesome. So I can say, hey, I'm going to be here at 2:30 and I'll be back Friday. And they're like, yeah, no problem. So that's the way that goes.
Well,
we're Canadian. We're all I was about to say, that much sounds easier. Nice. Yeah. We're Canadian. Everybody's like easy down here. Like nobody cares.
Yeah. Oh man, it's just like I don't hear that many times. It's sort of like, yeah, that's. I don't know that you would get that many. Well, I mean, people are people no matter where you go. I mean, I'm not going to be convinced that.
I find a lot of it is how you talk to people. Like I remember living with Dusty and stuff like that, and the way he talked to like customers and stuff like that, I'd just be like, oh my god, like. And it's not him being rude or whatever. He just has a way he deals with people, right? And for me, I always go into customers like with kitten gloves, right? I'm just like, well, like I'll try to help you out here, whatever. Where Dusty's just like, you either fucking take it now or like don't take it at all. I watched him like leave job sites because like they weren't ready for him. He's like, fuck this, we're out of here. And then like the contractor would be like, where are you? He'd be like, I left because you guys aren't ready. Like, you know what I mean? Like, fuck you guys, kind of thing. Where I'm just like, I'd be the guy like helping them move like shit out of the way. Like, I'll help you do this, and you know what I mean? Like, I'll do whatever I need to do to get this, like. But then that goes a long way though, because I'll help them do this. But then if I need an extra 2 guys to help me do my part, they're just like, well, like whatever. Yeah, I can send over 2 guys to help you, help you do this or whatever. So for me, like, I don't know, my customer service, it's probably been more than it should be, but sometimes it helps me in the long run, and sometimes it doesn't. Like sometimes it's it's been something that's a downfall, but whatever. It's just who I am. You know what I mean? I'm willing to bend over backwards and help people out.
Well, I mean, even if it's because you can't be someone else, like it's just not really possible. And I think it's good for people to see that like all these different type of personalities and approaches and styles and everything, like we all have a very similar goal. We make things out of concrete or whatever the material is, and there's all these different ways to do it. So kind of what you were talking about in the very beginning of the idea of where like this is how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to do it this way, and you can only do it this way, and blah, 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 blah. Well, as soon as somebody gets to the point where they've matured enough in their journey to realize that while some of those things can be somewhat hard and fast rules, there's so much wiggle room that we have with every single little piece along the way. And it's those little tweaks that you get where that's what creates all the different stuff that we have. So I'm really excited about seeing how the course that you take with the new designing stuff. We're going to see if you actually start putting stuff on paper.
No, we're definitely going to do something. Like, I think anything that I have in my head that I have to put on paper, you're right. I probably should just sit down and, you know what? I can't. It's hard because I feel like I need to get away sometimes to do that because I feel like there's just you know what I mean, you're around all these surroundings, and you just need to kind of like, you know, my dad used to go to these think tanks back in the day when they were doing stuff, like when they were doing like a building or something like that, and they'd go there and they'd throw ideas around, but they were out in nature somewhere in like a cabinet they'd rent. And to me, like that's kind of where I need to be. I have a houseboat, and during the summer I spend all my time on my houseboat, and that's where I actually have some of my greatest like thoughts, and like because I'm just out there chilling. There's no distractions. There's no nothing. I'm just out on the water by myself, or like with my girlfriend or whatever, and it's just, yeah, you know what I mean? And that's where I probably need to put myself, me, because I don't like to read. She's like, you should read. I'm like, I don't fucking read. Like, I can barely read. I'm a, you know, I'm a concrete guy, not a guy that reads books. But I do like to, you know, I do like to draw. I do like to do stuff like that, like architectural drawings, I guess you can say. I'm not sitting there. I couldn't draw, you know, like a person's face to save my life. But I mean, when it comes down to, can I draw a piece of furniture? 100%. Can I come up with a design? Absolutely. I guess I just haven't taken enough time out for myself to do that. So,
is there a reason?
Just so much going on in life, personal life, work life, you know, running it. Yeah, it's all of it. You mean, I guess I get so caught up in everything that you know, I wouldn't say this, I suffer from depression, so like that, but like usually when I get home, it's been such a day, you know what I mean? Because I'm helping my brother run his company. I'm helping my brother, I'm doing my own company. And then like I said, I have my personal life and all that kind of stuff, kids, and, you know, kids in university and kids in high school. And yeah, I think I'm just mentally drained. So like, all I want to do is just chill out. And usually like I'm in bed by like 7 o'clock, you know what I mean? It just,
what time do you usually get up?
6:30. Yeah. So I'm up at 6:30.
Okay. So you make sure, so you're pretty good at getting a certain amount of sleep.
Yeah, I never set a timer. Like it's 6:30. I'm always up, like clockwork. And I try to be in the shop by 7. Just because I don't know, I probably don't start to work till 8, but I enjoy coming in, and I have a coffee with my brother and we talk. You know what I mean? And we talk about our day and whatever. And then you know, I'll either clean up the shop for half an hour and just sweep the floor, and kind of, I don't like to work in a mess. That's the biggest thing too. If you can, moving forward with people, you know what I mean, is don't leave shit on your table if you're working. I'm more productive in a clean shop than I am in a dirty shop. So, yeah, that's another big thing. I guess if we can go back to something I'd say before,
definitely. Thing where I didn't have a number 2.
Yeah, you know, my shop, I wouldn't say my shop is organized as good as like, you know, Dusty's or Brandon's or anything like that. Like I definitely, because I share a shop, and my brother is you know, he's a fucking mess because he works with different type of concrete. I was making sure that he wasn't like standing around me somewhere.
Yeah.
But what
he's
he does
behind you.
Yeah, what he does is a lot dirtier than what I do and all that kind of stuff. So I'm always kind of helping clean up after him and keeping our shop organized. I keep the shop as organized as I can and as clean as I can so that I can feel comfortable working in it. You mean my next shop you'll be able to eat off the floor. It'll be immaculate because I'll be in my own space and I'm the only person held accountable for that shop to be clean. So right now I have my 2 brothers, my dad use the shop. So I've got on random, you know, my nephew will come in here and work on his fucking car, and there's shit lying on the ground in the morning. And I'm like, fuck, like, why couldn't you know, then I'm cleaning it up and I'm picking it up and I'm putting it away. So, you know, right now I'm at the mercy of like 4 to 5 other people. So, but like right now I look around and it's clean enough. Like I've cleaned off the floor, my table's all cleaned off. And it's, you know, to me, I walk in and I'm like, oh, you know, I can build something. I'm not moving shit. And I'm not. So, you know, another thing would be is shop organization is huge, you know, and you'll get a lot further in your day if you keep a clean shop, for sure.
Yeah, that's one of the things where I didn't appreciate it as much until I got really organized. Because I've got a really small shop. Like I'm in a 2-car garage, so like everything has to have its space. It's like this goes here and this goes here.
Yeah.
You just can't appreciate how amazing that is, having an organized shop and a clean shop and like putting things away. It's a bit of a pain in the ass because you feel like you're always putting things away, but like it is amazing how much of an impact that has.
Well, it's funny, and I think that's where some of the OCD kind of came from is working in Dusty's shop for so long. Like you'd be walking by and like Dusty's got a spot for everything. And, you'd be walking by and you just grab a tape measure off the table because like, why is it sitting there? And you go put it back up, you go put it back up into its home, or you'd see like a pencil, or it didn't matter what you're walking by. You already knew it had a home. So you're just like, okay, little guy, like go back to your home. And like, so there was nothing ever really left on tables. Drills had a spot, the tape measures had a spot, this had a spot, nails, screws, everything had a spot. So that's where my OCD came from, is like working in their shops. It was just like, there was a space for everything. And I tried to do that in my shop. I went out and bought like thousands of dollars in toolboxes and whatever. And like, I can go through every drawer right now and only like a quarter of them are full, because like everything just gets scattered because everybody's using everything and it's always like not where it should be. But that's a battle I learned to let go, like probably like a year ago, because it was frustrating me. Like I would, my mom works in our shop because we have a mini pot that's attached to it. And I would just be giving her grief all the time. Like, why the fuck can't everybody just put their shit away or help me clean up or whatever? And I finally just let it go, because I'm just like, you know what, it is what it is. We get by. We all have to work together. And, I think at times it was like really dragging me down, because like I was coming in here for an extra hour or two a day, to clean sometimes. And I'm just like, but then again, sometimes I'm the messy guy. Like sometimes like I was casting here till 12:30 the other night, and I left all my mixing bags. Like I cut open all my bags and threw them on the floor. And, and I walked out at 12:30. I got here at 7:30. My brother had already been here at 7. So I mean, he's walking over all the mess and whatever. I get it. Like we're all dirty sometimes. When I'm working on if we get this new shop, it'll be to my liking all the time, and that's what I'm looking forward to. So,
do you have
big and great things?
Yeah. Do you have a rough idea of when you'll get like a affirmative thumbs up or thumbs down on that?
We're just putting in offers now, so I'm hoping we know within the next 2 weeks. It's not so much up to me. It's another property that my brother's looking at possibly purchasing to open up another shop. And he wants the yard. There's a shop on site that that I'll be running the yard and the shop. So I'll be taking over the shop as my own, and the yard will be his, because just for material. So it's the thing about me is I have great vision. Like some people look at the shop and they're like, man, that thing's run down. I'm like, no, it's awesome. I'm like, I already know what it's going to look like. Like I'm already like, from day one I walked in, I'm like, I'm doing this. And it's all realistic stuff. Like not stuff that I'm thinking like it's going to have like, spinners and whatever. Like it's going to look exactly how I want. I already know what the end detail will look like. I already know like, where I'm going to put this and where I'm going to put this and how to organize this and that. So for me, it's a good vision. And something that I'm really looking forward to. I just, the decision, the money's not mine to spend. So, I'm basically, it's my brother's money. So I only push so hard. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think we should actually end it there. I mean, we were already at 2 hours.
And we already, and then we probably were talking for 20 minutes of shitty.
Oh yeah. Well, we know not to do that again
time.
if you decide you want to do this again.
Yeah. No, I really enjoyed it. No, it was great, and it went great. I think so.
Well, I'm glad, because like some people are kind of iffy on whether they want to do it or not. I've had some people already where they've seen the first 2 episodes and then they're like, man, I want to do it now. And I'm like, fuck yeah, you do.
Yeah. No, it was awesome. Really
I'm looking forward to talking again if you get in the new shop, like kind of walking through that and kind of seeing like setting up a new shop. Like that's fun. Like working with a blank slate. That's fucking awesome.
Well, you know what? I've done it. It is funny because I've done it twice with Dusty. Like when he fell off the ladder and broke his leg, he was setting up his new shop. And then, and then I went there and I helped him set up his shop. So I was working in his little shop in his backyard. Then we went to his next shop, and then he sold that shop and built the shop at his house now. And and I helped build part. I was helping there for some of that. So so I've done lots of shop setups with people, and I've done my own. Like we did ours here, but the problem is I was building it for 2 people, and
Yeah,
it hasn't
that's
worked out.
tough.
Yeah. So now, like you said, when I go into my new shop, I'm going to do everything that I should have done in the first place. And I would say it's a 75% chance it's going to happen.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, which is really good. Like my brother really wants to do it, so that's a bonus. It's just a matter of it's a lot of money, and so it's just a matter of the ifs, ands, or buts. But he's already figured kind of all that out. So yeah, if we get a new shop and I already have ideas of really cool ideas of stuff I want to build for it, stuff that's way out of the realm of anything I've ever built before. Right now I work a lot of just concrete. My whole goal from the beginning has been concrete, wood, and steel. That's where I've always wanted to go.
Dude.
Yeah. So you mean I have another I have another Instagram profile that I've never used yet, but I just want to make sure I had the name called Combined Elements, because that's
nice.
So that's where I've always wanted to go, and you'll see a lot of creative concrete will always be who it is. But then I want to go and I will start up another side of all that, and it's called Combined Elements, and it'll be concrete, wood, and steel. It'll be all 3 elements, in one, and that's where you'll see me go over the next year if we get the shop. So
nice. Are you gonna do all the wood and steel yourself, or are you gonna sub that out?
No, I'm gonna do it all myself. I can hold my own with a welder. Woodworking I'm really good at, so I'm not worried about that part. I'm not saying I'm the best, but I'm good at it. I can, and then with welding, I'm learning. I have a girl that I work with sometimes, Lucy. She does a lot of welding. She builds some amazing pieces. I build some of her concrete tops that she makes the basis for. So we're definitely gonna do some stuff together. Because the new shop will be a lot closer where she is, so she'll be able to come in on weekends and we can smash out some awesome stuff together. Because I always tell her she's a waste of talent, because she's a carpenter working for this shitty construction company, and I'm like, just fucking quit and go on your own and like do your own thing, or come work with me. But yeah, so
does she have anywhere that she kind of exhibits her work, like Instagram profile or anything like that?
Yeah, so her Instagram is Big Roos.
What?
Yeah, Big Roos. So her name is Lucy Chappelle, and she's let me just make sure I got the Instagram name, but Big Roos, because I just want so it's Big and then Roos is RUCE. So you could check her out. She makes some pretty
RUCE.
Yeah, Big Roos. So she's like my twin. When I met her, I was in a really bad space in my life, and yeah, she came in like just swinging with me, and we've built a bunch of projects together. She's come to help me because she wanted to learn concrete, but as a welder, fabricator, woodworker, she is unreal. Like, she makes amazing pieces, and like I said, when I move to the new shop, she's going to do a lot of the design pieces will be with her. Probably 90% of all the pieces will be with her.
Next time you talk to her, ask her if she would like me to put her IG handle at the bottom of the screen.
She would love that. Yeah. No, do it.
Well, the thing is, like, just for legal shit and all that kind of stuff, because like I'm not talking with her. It's you and me talking. So I'm not gonna get myself in trouble with any of this shit. So just ask her, and then just shoot me a text or something like that. And if so, I'll
screenshot it so that you know that she actually said yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I'll put her, if she wants, I'll put her information, because I think it's good for makers everybody to kind of stick together.
Yeah, absolutely. No, she like I said, she's got so much talent. She's younger. She's like 20. I think she's turned 28. But it's like, she's got an old soul like me. Like, she's just like, she's already like 40. Well, fuck, I act like a 20-year-old. So
yeah, guys never grow up. We just get older.
Yeah, but no, she's got some amazing talent, and I keep telling her, I'm like, listen, we need to do more work together, because like, she's got the wood and steel part nailed down, and it's the concrete part that she's missing and that she wants. So yeah, we got some pretty big. She actually just called me today about she has an audition for an HD TV show, and she wants to basically present me and her. She doesn't want to do it alone. She wants me to be part of it. So
nice.
So yeah, so I was just like, yeah, I'm like, me and you as a team. I'm like, we always get drunk together in the shop, and it's pretty comical, and so we have a fun time when we're building stuff. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, if she gets to where she wants to come on here, she's more than welcome to come on and talk.
Sounds awesome, man. Well, anyways, I'll let you end this because you're right. We probably talked a lot longer than I thought we would have. So it's been great though.
Thanks for listening, guys. If you found this episode helpful, a review, like, thumbs up, and all that other social goodness would be incredibly helpful. It helps this podcast get discovered and lets me know how I can improve if you take the time to leave me a comment on any of the social platforms. If this episode was helpful and you want to help support the channel, using those affiliate links in the description is an easy, no-cost way for you to do that. Thanks again, everyone, and I look forward to seeing or hearing from you in the next episode.